You think leadership is about inspiration, unity, and trust. It's not. True leadership is built on control, on the quiet art of creating dependence. In this video, we dismantle the illusion of moral leadership and expose the forbidden loop that every ruler, CEO, and manipulator has used since the dawn of power: isolation, manipulation, domination. I speak not to the Na'vi, but to those who have glimpsed the dark machinery behind every throne. Leadership, in its purest form, is not virtue. It is architecture, the architecture of perception, obedience, and fear. The weak seek connection, the powerful create isolation. The masses crave honesty. The rulers craft illusion. What you call influence is but refined manipulation. What you celebrate as charisma is disguised control. In this forbidden loop, we dissect how leaders, both celebrated and condemned, use distance to elevate themselves, narrative to enslave belief, and domination to seal the cycle. If you seek comfort, leave now. If you seek power, stay. For the mind of a leader is not a sanctuary, it is a weapon. Power is not born in the crowd. It is born in the silence between you and them. The first act of a true leader is not to unite, it is to withdraw. Why? Because control begins where connection ends. You see, proximity creates equality. The moment they feel close to you, they begin to believe they understand you. And what is understood cannot be feared. Every ruler who has lasted understood this paradox. Caesar marched with his legions, but never among them. He shared their victories, not their doubts. He allowed them to see his generosity, never his hesitation. His isolation was his armor. The powerful do not isolate to escape. They isolate to define the space between them and the rest. That space is power. It is the invisible throne from which influence radiates. Think of the modern world. The CEO behind glass walls, the political leader who speaks of the people, yet never walks among them. The influencer who seems accessible, yet reveals nothing real. This distance is not arrogance. It is architecture. They build perception the way fortresses once built walls to control access, to filter entry, to decide who gets close enough to matter. You too must learn this art. Isolation does not mean solitude. It means selective access. It means knowing that intimacy is the enemy of authority. Ask yourself, how many people truly know your next move? If the answer is too many, then your strategy is already compromised. A leader's greatest threat is not rebellion. It is overexposure. The more you reveal, the more they dissect. The more you connect, the more they compare. And when they begin to compare, they begin to question why you should lead at all. This is why isolation is not cruelty. It is necessity. When you are apart, you are myth. When you are among them, you are human. And humanity, while admirable, rarely commands obedience. Consider the Church during the Renaissance. The Pope did not rule by proximity, but by presence. The kind that could be felt, not reached. The distance between his throne and the masses was spiritual, but it was real. That gap created awe. And awe, when repeated, becomes power. Isolation also sharpens perception. When you are constantly surrounded by noise, you lose the clarity to see patterns. But in distance, your mind becomes analytical, detached, strategic. You stop reacting emotionally. You begin to move deliberately. In psychology, this detachment is called cognitive distance, the ability to observe without drowning in the event. Leaders who master it appear calm under pressure, yet calculating beneath. They never rush, because time bends around their silence. Their restraint makes others anxious. And anxiety, when directed properly, becomes obedience. But beware. There is a difference between isolation and invisibility. You must remain present enough to be felt, but distant enough to be desired. Disappear completely, and you become forgotten. Reveal too much, and you become ordinary. The art lies in oscillation, appearing when needed, withdrawing when your presence risks dilution. History's greatest manipulators mastered this rhythm. Napoleon showed himself to his troops just enough to ignite devotion, then vanished into command. His silence made his orders sacred. He let them believe they fought for him, when in truth, they fought for the idea of him. That is isolation perfected, when people follow not the person, but the perception. Look around you now. Every effective leader, from boardrooms to revolutions, plays this same psychological game. They control attention through absence. They amplify value through scarcity. Even in relationships, this principle holds. The one who withdraws first controls the emotional economy. Distance breeds desire. Desire breeds dependence. And dependence is power. You must ask yourself, are you too available? Do they feel entitled to your time, your thoughts, your emotions? If they do, you've already surrendered control. Withdraw. Observe their reaction. Watch how curiosity replaces comfort, how uncertainty becomes fascination. This is not manipulation for cruelty. It is preservation for command. To lead effectively, you must be seen as inevitable, not accessible. The sun does not ask permission to shine. It simply remains unreachable and therefore indispensable. Isolation, then, is not emptiness. It is construction. It is how you shape the frame through which others see you. And once that frame is built, every word you speak, every silence you hold, becomes amplified within it. So do not fear distance, fear exposure. Do not seek to be loved by all, seek to be understood by none. Because what they cannot define, they cannot destroy. But remember, this isolation is only the first movement of the forbidden loop. Once you have built distance, the next step is far darker. When silence alone no longer suffices, you must learn to bend perception itself. Perception is reality until someone stronger decides otherwise. You think people follow truth. They don't. They follow stories, crafted illusions that make them feel safe, righteous, or powerful. The leader who controls the story controls the mind. And once you control the mind, you control the world. Ask yourself, when was the last time you questioned the image of a powerful figure? You didn't, because your perception was managed before you even met them. From emperors to executives, every throne is built not on stone, but on narrative. Julius Caesar understood this better than his assassins ever did. He knew Rome didn't need another general. It needed a myth. So he wrote his own reports from the battlefield, portraying himself as merciful when convenient, ruthless when required. The public never saw Caesar the man. They saw Caesar the legend. And legends don't bleed until someone else controls the pen. That is the heart of manipulation, is shaping what others see, not what is. Do you know why perception is more powerful than truth? Because truth requires proof, but perception only requires repetition. Tell a lie beautifully enough, and even the wise will kneel before it. In our age, the weapon is not the sword, it's the spotlight. The powerful don't hide, they curate. Every image, every phrase, every silence becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of control. You might believe you're immune, that you see through the performance. But you underestimate your own wiring. The human brain is not built for objectivity. It's built for patterns, comfort, and bias. Cognitive psychologists call it confirmation bias. Once you believe a narrative, your mind defends it as if it were identity itself. A skilled manipulator doesn't fight your beliefs, he redirects them. He lets you think the idea was yours. This is how kingdoms are maintained, how corporations thrive, how revolutions are controlled, not by force, but by perception that feels voluntary. Look at modern politics. Two leaders can commit the same act. One is hailed as visionary, the other condemned as tyrant. The difference, narrative management. The same tool Caesar used, refined by media, multiplied by algorithms. Today's throne is a screen. Your loyalty is not pledged, it's programmed. But let us step deeper into the psychology of it. Perception manipulation begins with framing. You don't change the facts, you change their context. Tell a story from one angle, and it's heroism. From another, it's deceit. The event stays the same, only the light shifts. The art lies in timing. Control the moment something is seen, and you control what it means. A scandal revealed too soon becomes noise. Revealed too late, it becomes history rewritten. Napoleon once said, "Public opinion is the thermometer a monarch must constantly consult." But he didn't just consult it. He manufactured it. Through newspapers he subsidized, artists he funded, and enemies he vilified. He became not just Emperor of France, but Emperor of perception. Even when he fell, he shaped his exile into martyrdom. and history still remembers him not as defeated, but defied. Now, bring this to your own life. You might not rule nations, but you do rule impressions. At work, in relationships, online, you broadcast fragments of yourself, and people build an empire of assumptions around them. Every post, every silence, every word constructs a version of you. The question is, who's directing that version? You or the crowd? If you don't design your perception, someone else will. If you don't master narrative, you'll become a character in another person's script. The manipulator understands this instinctively. He never defends his reputation, he defines it. He never reacts to rumors, he seeds them. He never begs to be understood. He lets mystery do the heavy lifting. Because uncertainty breeds fascination, and fascination breeds control. Do you notice how some leaders reveal flaws deliberately? A calculated imperfection makes them human enough to trust, yet strong enough to follow. It's illusion disguised as authenticity, a weapon far deadlier than truth. Perception, when crafted well, becomes self-sustaining. Once people invest emotionally in your image, they will defend it against evidence. They will call your lies complexity, your contradictions depth. They will do your work for you. This is why the powerful rarely argue, they orchestrate. They do not chase truth, they stage it. You can shout truth from the rooftops and be ignored, or you can whisper illusion from a balcony and be crowned. That is the cruel poetry of perception. People prefer the lie that flatters them over the truth that humbles them. So, ask yourself, are you shaping the illusion or living inside one? Have you crafted your narrative, or are you trapped within another's design? Because once you master perception, reality becomes negotiable. And when reality bends for you, the next step is inevitable. Power does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to the one who understands emotion, but refuses to drown in it. You've been told to lead with empathy, to feel deeply, to connect. But connection without control is dependency, and empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. Emotion is not the enemy of power, it is the instrument of it. The question is not whether you should feel. The question is, how precisely can you use what others feel? Let's start with a truth few dare to say. People are not logical, they are emotional beings who justify feelings with logic after the decision is made. The manipulator, the strategist, the ruler, he knows this. He plays the melody of emotion while others argue over the notes. History has crowned such men and women. Alexander inspired love in his soldiers, not merely loyalty. They would die for him because they felt he carried divine favor. Was it true? It didn't matter. Their emotion was real, and therefore, so was his power. To rule, you must learn to touch emotion without surrendering to it. Most people are emotional mirrors. They reflect what they receive. Smile at them, they soften. Scorn them, they tremble. But a leader cannot afford to mirror. He must absorb, analyze, and then decide what emotion serves his purpose. This is emotional leverage. It is the ability to read, regulate, and redirect the emotional state of others. Not through compassion, but through calculation. Imagine a negotiation. Two sides locked in tension, egos flaring. The emotional fool raises his voice, defending pride. The master of emotion lowers his tone, speaks slowly, lets silence carve the air. In that pause, the other begins to doubt, and doubt is the doorway to control. Silence is not the absence of feeling, it is dominance over it. You might think this sounds cold. It is. But coldness, when deliberate, is clarity. Those who cannot master their inner storms are slaves to anyone who can calm them. Psychology confirms what rulers already knew centuries ago. The one who maintains composure gains authority. In emotional contagion theory, feelings spread like fire. The calm individual becomes the anchor. Others unconsciously align to their stability. That's why true leaders rarely shout. They don't need to. Do you remember when Cleopatra met Caesar? She arrived not pleading but poised, wrapped in mystery, her demeanor a perfect balance of vulnerability and command. She didn't argue, she influenced. She let Caesar's desire do her bidding. That is emotional leverage at its finest. When power looks like affection and control looks like surrender, You must ask yourself, how often do you react instead of orchestrate? How often do you let anger dictate your strategy or empathy cloud your judgment? Because the moment you feel too much, you become predictable, and predictability is death to power. To manipulate emotion, you must first understand its structure. Every feeling has two weaknesses, timing and trigger. If you can identify when someone is emotionally charged and what provokes it, you own their decision-making. Consider modern leaders. The skilled ones don't just deliver speeches, they stage emotional experiences. Music, lighting, repetition, all designed to bypass logic and feed emotion directly. It's not persuasion, it's programming. Even in personal life, this law rules. The partner who controls emotional rhythm controls the relationship. Withdraw affection, and they chase. Offer warmth, and they attach. It's not love, it's leverage. But beware, using emotion requires precision, not cruelty. If you wound too deeply, you breed resentment. If you comfort too easily, you breed entitlement. Balance is everything. The skilled manipulator leaves others uncertain, grateful for approval, fearful of disappointment. In truth, emotional leverage is not about manipulation alone. It's about discipline. You cannot lead others' emotions if you are ruled by your own. The leader must remain the eye in the hurricane, calm while others spin. In chaos, this composure becomes divine. Ask yourself, can you look into someone's rage and feel nothing but curiosity? Can you comfort without caring, inspire without believing, wound without guilt? If not, you still serve emotion. You do not yet command it. When you learn to direct emotion like an architect directs light, people will call it charisma, wisdom, even love. They will never realize it was calculation all along. They will follow you because they feel you understand them, and they will never question how deeply you've engineered that feeling. Emotion is the most obedient servant and the most dangerous master. To rule effectively, you must learn when to wield it and when to mute it. Every smile, every silence, every gesture must serve intention. Remember, the one who controls emotion controls momentum, and the one who controls momentum controls destiny. But emotion is only the current. What follows next is the tide itself. You've learned to touch hearts. Now you must learn to command submission. Domination is not taken. It is offered. And the moment they offer it, you have already won. Most believe power is seized through aggression, through louder voices, sharper swords, firmer commands. But true domination is quieter. It begins not with action, but with acceptance. When others choose to yield, to trust, to follow, you have already conquered their minds. Ask yourself how many people obey you not because they must, but because they want to. That difference defines the ruler from the tyrant. The tyrant demands submission. The ruler evokes it. This reflex, the human impulse to submit, is ancient. It lies buried beneath reason, wired into survival itself. In every group, the mind searches for hierarchy, for the one who will decide when others hesitate. Domination, therefore, is not forced. It is recognized. Consider the wolf pack. The alpha does not constantly fight for position. He radiates command through posture, silence, and certainty. The others obey because resistance feels unnatural. So too with humans. We sense who stands above, not by words, but by energy. The unshakable conviction that one deserves to lead. The illusion of equality ends the moment confidence enters the room. This is the secret most never see. Domination is psychological equilibrium reversed. You make them believe their strength depends on your presence. History remembers the few who mastered this instinct. Take Genghis Khan. His empire was not built merely on fear. It was built on belief. He made submission appear inevitable. Villages surrendered before his armies arrived, not because they saw death, but because they saw destiny. His legend conquered before his soldiers did. That is domination refined, when your image alone bends resistance. You too can wield this, but it requires composure, distance, and a deliberate understanding of human fragility. People crave structure more than freedom. Freedom terrifies. It demands responsibility. Structure comforts. It defines boundaries, roles, safety. The dominated, whether in politics, business, or love, seek a figure who simplifies their uncertainty. They don't want equality, they want direction. To dominate, you must become that direction. Speak less. Move slowly, as if time bends to your pace. Every deliberate pause tells them, I decide when things begin. Notice how generals, kings, and executives use stillness. Stillness projects control. Noise is the weapon of the insecure. When Alexander faced his enemies, he never rushed. He rode at the front of his army not to display bravery, but inevitability. His calm was their surrender. And when men believe their fate is sealed, they stop resisting. It feels easier to obey than to fight. This is the domination reflects the psychological conversion of defiance into devotion. It happens not through threats, but through emotional conditioning. Your presence becomes associated with stability, your absence with chaos. They begin to rely on you. Dependence breeds obedience. In modern times, look no further than corporate leaders or cult figures. They rarely command directly. Instead, they shape an environment where others anticipate their desires before they are spoken. Their subordinates internalize the leader's standards as their own. That is not control, it's assimilation. And yet, domination requires subtlety. If you appear too forceful, you awaken resentment. If you appear too humble, you invite exploitation. The art lies in dynamic intimidation, balancing calm authority with quiet unpredictability. Let them wonder what you will do next. Uncertainty keeps them attentive. Certainty breeds complacency. Psychologically, this works through the principle of intermittent reinforcement. Reward them occasionally. Withdraw approval unpredictably. Their minds begin to chase your validation as if it were oxygen. They don't even realize they've built their emotional rhythm around your reactions. Every dictator, every CEO, every manipulator of history has done this instinctively. They understood that domination isn't about forcing people to kneel. It's about teaching them to feel safe while kneeling. Ask yourself, how do people feel in your presence? Do they relax or recalibrate? Do they speak freely or measure their tone? That tension, that awareness of your approval is domination made visible. But domination is fragile if not reinforced. You must continually feed the perception of inevitability. Appear unshaken by loss, unmoved by praise, untouched by noise. The moment they sense that their opinion affects you, you've surrendered control. To dominate is to detach. To care less than they do, because the one who cares least controls most. Remember, domination begins with perception, but is sustained through emotion. Once they feel inferior, their logic will follow. Once they believe you deserve authority, they will defend your rule against their own interests. That is the final form of control, when they enslave themselves on your behalf. Domination is not cruelty, it's calibration. It's the engineering of dependence disguised as leadership. The strong never force obedience, they make obedience feel like purpose. But even domination has limits. When every mind bends to your will, when every emotion answers your command, a question emerges. What happens when you must control yourself to keep the illusion alive? Power does not move in straight lines. It circles back, endlessly feeding itself. The weak call it corruption. The strong call it nature. You've learned isolation. You've learned manipulation. You've learned domination. Now, you must see how they merge, how each feeds the other in a cycle without mercy or end. This is the forbidden loop. The architecture of sustained control. The secret every empire, cult, and dynasty has guarded in silence. It begins with isolation. When you remove yourself from the masses, you create distance. That distance becomes mystique. Mystique becomes authority. Authority attracts dependence. Dependence gives birth to manipulation. You control how they see you, how they interpret your silence, your approval, your absence. You feed them selective truth until illusion feels safer than reality. And once they believe the illusion, domination no longer requires effort. But domination itself is never the end. It is the bridge that leads back to isolation. Because once you rise above, you must protect the throne by removing access again. If they get too close, they see your weakness. If they see weakness, they remember you are human, and humanity destroys divinity. The loop closes and begins again. Do you see now? Power is not linear progress. It is a self-perpetuating illusion, a system that maintains itself through emotional gravity. Consider the Vatican during the Renaissance. The Church ruled not through armies, but through the loop. The Pope was untouchable, self-isolation. His image sacred and scripted Seba's manipulation. His decrees unquestioned domination. And when faith wavered, he withdrew again into divine mystery, restarting the cycle. Every enduring structure, political, corporate, spiritual, uses this pattern. Those who fail to maintain it are consumed by the very people they sought to lead. Look at Napoleon. He mastered isolation. Distant, mythic, godlike. He mastered manipulation, crafting legend through every victory. He mastered domination, commanding nations through will alone. But he broke the loop. He became visible. He let them see his exhaustion, his fallibility. And the moment they saw the man, they destroyed the myth. That is the curse of breaking the cycle. Once perception collapses, power crumbles faster than it was built. So you must ask yourself, can you endure the loop? Can you live within a system that feeds on your distance, thrives on your image, and isolates you from those who praise you? Because this loop does not only govern nations. It governs relationships, it governs influence. It governs you. When you isolate, you draw attention. When you manipulate, you hold that attention. When you dominate, you secure it. But to keep it, you must withdraw again or drown in your own success. Psychology reveals why this works. Humans are addicted to contrast. Certainty bores them, mystery enslaves them. They love what they cannot fully possess. The forbidden, the untouchable, the unpredictable, these command more loyalty than any promise. That's why the leader who is too open loses followers. Why the lover who is too available loses allure. Familiarity kills fascination, and fascination is the oxygen of power, so you must become rhythm itself. Approach, retreat, command, disappear. Keep them reaching, never grasping. Let desire and fear coexist until they cannot tell the difference. In the forbidden loop, control becomes effortless because resistance feels meaningless. People stop questioning you not because they're afraid, but because they believe questioning you would betray themselves. That is ultimate mastery, when your will becomes their comfort. Think of every great manipulator. Emperors, cult leaders, prophets, CEOs. Their followers didn't feel enslaved. They felt chosen, domination disguised as devotion. This is not cruelty, it's psychological economy. The mind seeks order. The heart seeks direction. Offer both, and they will give you freedom willingly. But remember, once you enter this loop, escape is nearly impossible. You cannot descend without shattering the illusion you've built. The same cycle that elevates you becomes your cage. Isolation protects you, but also imprisons you. Manipulation grants control, but distorts your own sense of truth. Domination ensures loyalty, but breeds paranoia. The loop feeds power, but it also feeds loneliness. And yet, those who master it never stop, because the taste of control is stronger than the fear of solitude. Ask yourself, then, would you rather live seen and powerless or unseen and obeyed? Would you trade humanity for mastery or prefer the comfort of weakness? The forbidden loop demands everything. Your detachment, your discipline, your identity. It is both weapon and curse, empire and tomb. Most will never step into it. Fewer still will survive inside it, but those who do reshape reality itself. Because when you complete the loop, you no longer use power, you become it. Control is never about chains. It's about belief. When they think they are choosing, while every path leads back to you. That is mastery. You do not need to command. You only need to construct the illusion that obedience was their idea. Make them feel seen while showing nothing of yourself. Let them taste freedom, while their leash remains invisible. The true strategist does not fight for power. He designs the environment in which others surrender it, and when they finally kneel, they will call it love, loyalty, or faith. But you will know it was always calculation. So tell me, how much control could you wield if no one ever realized you were doing it? Reflect. Comment your thoughts below. Subscribe if you wish to step deeper into the dark architecture of influence. And share this video, so others may believe they are learning about power, while you are already practicing it.